in order to improve revenue collection. Yes, but to do that in regards to the National Development Plan, the second National Development Plan, it has targeted a tax to GDP ratio of about 16%, which it anticipates, and it is anticipated that the growth in tax revenue during this coming financial year will come from the attainment of the following sub-objectives. Listen carefully once again. Improving tax policies to promote industrialization, social welfare, that includes you, yes, you who's watching, and strong economic growth. Some of you are smiling at this point in time, but still continuing enhancing the capacity of the revenue administration to collect revenue and improving citizens' perceptions on taxation. Now, one would wonder, how can they improve our perception if they've never asked us what our perception is in regards to this? That is why we're having this conversation, and we're not alone this morning. Mala is going to do us the honors of actually letting you know who we have with us in studio.
Right, and indeed we do have Honorable Wilfred Niwagaba. He is the Member of Parliament in Ndorwa East. He also presented the opposition budget framework paper highlighting the dangers of not involving the citizens in the budgeting process. Welcome on the show.
Thank you, Rita, and good morning, viewers.
Good morning. Next to him is Ms. Jane Nalunga. She is the Country Director of Siatini. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mala. Thank you, Rita. And good morning, viewers.
Good morning. Let's have this conversation. Of course, Siatini has its own study and report out. We also have you who presented this budget paper. Let's start from there. What has been the uptake of this particular move that you made?
Well, one, of course, you know, we made the law called the Public Finance Management Act that entails the entire budgeting process. We begin with the budget framework paper with the principles and proposed the budget in terms of revenue corrections and expenditure. And contrary to the old norm, we now pass the budget by the 31st of May.
Right.
By the time the minister comes to read the budget in June, it has already been passed and it moves. So although we now have what the framework is all about, the most important thing Ugandans and citizens should now interest themselves in is what comes after the budget framework paper has been compressed by Parliament, and what comes after are the tax proposals. Because if now the budget is looking at raising around 18 trillion from domestic tax collections, where is this money coming from? So government will come up with the tax bills. We are going to increase here, we are going to increase here, we are going to increase here, because it is all about increment, not reduction. Maybe you may have some reductions here and there, and that's where Ugandans need to put a lot of emphasis. And two, to also put a lot of emphasis on the money collected. Where is it going?
Right.
How is it going to be spent? When you look at the framework as proposed, almost 29, almost 30%
right.
is going to
debt
payment of debt.
The second thing on the list in regards to where the
actually it's the biggest part of the money that will be collected will go to pay debts.
Yeah.
Of course, most of them to China. But also Ghana needed to know these debts we incurred. What exactly did they do? Were they justifiable in the first instance? If you borrowed a road, maybe to construct a road, did you construct it at that cost? Look at the dams we've constructed. The people, there is a research that actually the cost of our road network, the cost of our dams compared to the cost in Ethiopia and other African countries, how is extremely high. So is it the component of the debt that is actually going into people's pockets, not to actually deliver the services? So the things Ugandans need to know. Three, how much money is going into the services for our people? The health, education, the water, electricity, and the like. In our proposal, we've broken it down, and you realize the amount on average for each Ugandan will receive around, on average, will get an allocation around 280,000
right.
for
all those services.
Imagine.
Broken down.
It leaves us wondering and saying, how is this even possible? Because within a country, there are citizens. You are a citizen, I am a citizen. Question is, to what extent have we as the citizens actually been involved in all of this that you're talking about? Because as you say and mention these facts, that maybe some of our costs of developing a few things are higher than they are in different regions within Africa. Do citizens know about this? Have they been told about this?
Well, that's the biggest challenge. I am sure, apart from the very few who read newspapers and the very few who watch NTV and other media, the majority of our citizens really do not grasp and don't appreciate the consequences of some of the things we do in Parliament, although we are supposed to be doing for and in their name.
We'll go to that. We'll go back to that and asking you the question, your colleagues, who do they represent? Because of course that is the question that is coming from the people on the ground, saying that we elected you, but what you people do in Parliament, and not every single person is pro the people. But let me loop you in, of course, Madam Jane. You are pushing as Siatini for fairness and a just tax system. Let's just start from this question. Is that achievable? Now seeing that life and the cost of living will actually go higher come 2019, 2020 based on the budget framework.
Okay. Thank you, Mala, for that question. When you look at the situation, it's a bit complicated, you know. Government needs money. We are paying out a lot of money. And like Honorable has said, government is looking at mobilizing domestic revenue of around 18 trillion. Where is this money going to come from? From our research, we have done a research on Fair Tax Monitor Uganda. In fact, we are launching that study today at Gulfview Hotel in the afternoon at 2 in the afternoon today. And from our study, we found out that our taxes are not, the way they are collected and mobilized is not fair. That everybody is not paying his or her fair share of taxes.
What do you mean?
What I mean is that you find, for example, there's a lot of money collected from VAT. VAT is a regressive tax because all of us pay the same. If there is VAT on sugar, you, me, my mother, all the poor people pay the same. But when we look at direct taxes, you know, when we look at corporate taxes, they are very low. And in fact, the president was just complaining here that, you know, MTN there are lots of leakages, and there are lots of leakages in our tax system, the way we mobilize our money. And the higher the leakages, the more the tax burden is falling on you and me, who can't run away from it. So that's why we are talking about fairness, about just, that if we are to pay, if we are to carry this burden, let us, all of us, carry the burden. But then also there is the issue of what Honorable has raised, of where the money is going. Rita, you talked about the objectives, the strong economy and industry, the growing of the economy. We do see at Siatini, we are very passionate about trade, and we believe that Uganda, we can trade our way out of poverty. We can, because we have the weather, we have the products. We can be able to do that if we organize properly. But when you look at the budget, the way it's divided up, to trade and industry and cooperatives, we are allocating just 0.3% of the total budget. And we are talking about industry, we are talking about a strong economy. 0.3%. And maybe what I want to clarify is that revenue issues, it's a cycle. The way you mobilize, the way you allocate, the way you utilize comes back to the way you are going to mobilize. So if you haven't put money where you hope to bring money, then you are going to borrow.
Right. So as you speak of the fact that we need to put the money where we're going to get the money from, as of now, the domestic revenue collection, yes?
Yep.
Getting the money from the citizens, getting the money from the industries, the companies that are in Uganda. In regards to how much is actually and how much attention is given to the citizen, as we have seen reality on the ground, Omuntu Wawansi. Where do we take that? And I'd like Honorable and you, Ms. Jane, to answer that. Do we see that where we are actually going to collect this money from, we are taking money there as well?
Actually, when you look at the proposed budget in terms of allocation sector by sector, all of us know the sectors that bring us money as a country. One is agriculture.
Right.
2 is tourism. 3 is trade, which has mentioned it. But if you look at the allocation, the proposed budget, agriculture is going to be allocated 919 billion. And of course, part of that is into wages, not wages and the like. Then tourism has the least at 32 billion. Then trade is actually the third last trade.
It's 86.
As 86
Yeah.
billion. So, of course, people will urge that yes, we are putting a lot of money in works and
Agriculture.
transport
Right.
because of the interlinkages, yes, but I can tell you the biggest amount of money is going into interest payments. And when you look, there is a confusion they bring. There is interest payments, especially for the foreign lenders, but there is also domestic
Interest payments.
interest payments,
Right.
which they are calling refinancing. And there is also domestic borrowing. And when you start borrowing domestically, you are competing with the common person, the citizen here, in terms of accessing credit from the banks. So the interest rate from banks will definitely increase because the government is competing with the
Right,
private person,
right.
the private sector. So at the end of the day, me, the private person, will have little money, if any, to invest domestically.
Because I cannot afford to borrow these loans from the corporate, commercial banks, so to speak.
So how do you actually tax someone like that?
And exactly.
How do you get to that part?
That particular person whom we are competing with, in terms of accessing credit, you are going again to levy all the taxes on him, income tax, VAT,
Right.
all sorts of taxes.
Right.
So we still now have to remain in this circle of complaint and poverty at the end of the day.
Yes, but Ms. Jane, just also ask you the same question. Are we giving as much as, is the government giving as much as they want to receive from the citizenry?
Yeah, I think the government has a lot of competing interests. And there are so many, and the cake is limited. And I think we need to put a lot of effort. We need to discuss as Ugandans how we use our money. Where should we put our money? We have a national development plan. We have a sort of a roadmap. Are we putting our money there? If, like Honorable has said, where we get our money is agriculture.
Right.
But not agriculture per se, because agriculture without value addition, you are putting people in poverty. Have we organized the value chains? Look at maize. Last season,
Right.
people produced maize. There was a bumper harvest.
But the prices were
Price
dipping.
went down,
Right.
We have no organized markets. We have no silos. We have no drying facilities. We have nothing.
So ideally what you're saying is that the focus would have moved away from works and transport into agriculture,
because it's
works
also
and transport into
because
tourism.
also you see works, because when you look at it, it's infrastructure, and I think we need to broaden what infrastructure means.
Right.
Because we have big infrastructure. We have the dams and all those big infrastructure. But we also have production infrastructure, the silos, the drying facilities, all those value chains. That's also productive
Right,
infrastructure. We have the dams, the water for production. So we need to broaden. When you talk about infrastructure, what do we mean by infrastructure?
Okay.
She has raised a very good point that where should we be putting our money? and we have the National Development Program. Wherever we do spend, the country's resources should be directed to the National Development Program. But the last research we made from our side of the other alternative government was that out of 135 ministries, departments and agencies of government, only 89 had development plans aligned to the National Development Plan. So the rest either had unaligned plans, or had draft plans, or had no plans
At all. They were somehow floating.
And yet, we would ordinarily insist that those ministries and agencies of government that do not have development plans should not be accessing the resources.
Right.
Because if they are going to access the resources, to do what?
Right.
To waste them.
Right.
So we need to insist on having development plans before we allocate monies to there. And this is now the process Parliament is going through. We are meeting all ministries and agencies of government. Show us the development plan in accordance with your proposed budget and how it is aligned to the National Development Program.
Let me ask you this. Of course, 2019, financial year 2019-2020, it is estimated that the domestic revenue collections will actually stand at 18.37 billion Uganda shillings, of which 17.855, actually 17,855 billion will be tax revenue, and 521 billion actually will be in non-tax revenue. Meaning these numbers are actually growing from what we currently have. Of course, the financial year 2017-2018 is yet to come to a close, and the estimations are at 16,358 billion, and this 15.938 will be as, you know, tax revenue, and 420 will be as non-tax revenue. Let me ask you a question, because we still have to collect these monies. There's been a conversation on expatriates coming to invest into our country, making profits thanks to what we have and the values that we have here, and that's why they're all running to our country. But most of these profits that they generate from the goodness in our countries are being leaked out and taken back to their countries. Should we relook the tax collection framework, so to speak, so that we don't continue choking the young businesses that are trying to make it and leave these people just to go out? We also have tax exemptions for these people. Do we really need this? Should that fund be relooked, so to speak? Madam Jane.
Thank you, Mala. That's a very, very good question. But we need to also to look hard, because each country works within government, has a policy framework, an ideology within which they operate, an ideology which informs certain programs and policies. Uganda, we went into under the structured adjustment programs, we came up with the neoliberalism, the ideology of liberalization, that the more you open up your economy, the better you are. We also believe that when you privatize, private sector is more efficient.
You earn more.
You earn more, they can do better, they are profit-oriented, and then deregulate government, get out of development. We have been implementing these three policies, broad framework, for a long time, and they have informed a number of our policies. And one of them is that we will handle investment. We came to believe that investors, foreign direct investment, is the panacea for all our problems. So call them, invite them, give them tax holidays, don't tax them, let them take away all the resources. So when you look at even our investment code, which is today in Parliament being revised, there they talk about transfer. Make your money, transfer all the resources. And we met the Parliament, we met the Committee of Finance, and we said no. You can't you can't say take out everything and said, if you do that, we are not going to get the investors. Then we give tax exemptions, tax holidays, So these are things which we need to rethink, because when we are looking at the tax proposals the tax bills. And I encourage our citizens to be able to engage on the tax bills, because that's where government is asking, saying, these are our proposals, what are you saying?
Right.
Who should be taxed and who shouldn't? So that's why we shouldn't just talk about tax bills, who shouldn't pay, but we should also look at the leakages. How do we plug those leakages?
And speaking of, before we come to Rita, speaking of the public, of course, having a voice in these particular processes, what are the platforms to do so? Because people say that, I'm afraid if I come out too strongly, maybe I might face the consequences.
Not really.
What should happen ideally? What should the public do? The ABCs of this?
Because you see, we already have, there are groups like CASITA. CASITA should have a platform where they bring their members to be able to have a say in the tax policies. We have WUMA, the Uganda Manufacturers Association.
Right.
They should be able to say, let us put a tax here. Because you see, tax shouldn't be just for revenue generation. Tax is a tool for development. That's why the other guy there was talking about tax alcohol, because that's you are regulating behavior.
Yes.
Tax betting, you are regulating behavior. So let us not look at tax as just in revenue, so that you can even get money from betting when our young people are dying, you know. So let us look at tax as a development tool, tax which can be able to grow the economy. Look at our economy, we liberalized, it's open, second-hand clothes are coming in, but on the other hand, we are saying we want to grow cotton, we want to grow the textile industry. We can't.
And now they are being brought not by Ugandans, but by foreigners. Operating kiosks and supermarkets and all sorts of things.
So where now, in regards to that, we talk about tax as a development plan for our country. Perhaps it goes to the point, and it brings us to the fact that as a number of citizens filing tax returns, tax compliance has become a thing that we feel, and a number of people feel, they should not even be a part of. Because when you hear someone saying, perhaps you tax other things, do not tax me in regards to maybe even just OTT, because there are a number of people, if we have seen the research has come out in regards to what has this new tax that was implemented, you find that a number of people have chosen to opt out of using social media, which begs the question, with the levels on the lack of ownership of the tax regime, because a citizen doesn't feel they're a part of it, doesn't feel they're helping develop the country, when we have all these corrupt officials choosing to take our share. How do we involve the citizens now? How do we make them more aware?
You see, Rita, you've mentioned the tax like OTT. If you look at the rationale, how it came up from the president was that people were using social media to abuse him. So he brought a tax not for any other purpose other than punishment and stop people from abusing me. But that's the wrong way to approach a tax. As Jenny has already said, a tax should be looked at from very many aspects, particularly not only to development, but also to control behavior, distribute resources, and the right. Now, when you look at the kind of national corporations operating here and foreign companies, the laxity we allowed them to only, as long as they pay taxes, we of course most of them do underpay, and employ our people, of course, yes, they do employ them, but what is the remuneration?
Exactly.
How much do they pay them? And the rest of the money, which they make here, capital freight, all goes to develop their own places. And of course now you also put in the aspect of corruption. Some of it is also stolen by our own, and even those who steal by our own are not investing it here.
They're taking it out
taking it out.
But Honorable, about the money retained here from the corporations, we don't have a minimum wage. Because that's how
this is what I was talking
government...
about. How much do they pay our people whom they claim to be employing?
Now, to continue this conversation, I believe there's something that we need to see and put more of this in context. We have a bite from a political analyst who said this. Let's just take a watch.
For instance, when you look at the priorities of the government from the National Development Plan, they are prioritizing issues such as the construction, the infrastructure, security, whereas the people are more interested in service delivery. As people would want to see how best is services being catered for in this budget, how do we look at production? But then now it is that balance that it still eludes both of us, whereas the government is saying that this is the place that we need to start at to influence the provision of these other services, but we the people want to see which services are.
I beg your pardon, those are actually views from a budget analyst. Now, in regards to that, I'll ask you, Ms. Jen and Honorable, as we wind up this conversation, in regards to what he has said, what do you believe and think should be taken up from that?
You see, what I want to comment on that, because of lack of local content, we are looking at infrastructure and construction as something which is taking a lot of money. But you find in so many countries, governments put in place construction and infrastructure to stimulate production and to create employment. Government puts money deliberately. You go to Schiphol Airport, every day they are constructing, but they are providing employment. Look at the construction here. If we had proper local content, the cement, the bars, all those jobs, it could stimulate employment.
Okay.
So let us look at it that way also. Let us build the capacity of our private sector, but also let us make sure that when we give infrastructure contracts, people shouldn't bring even the laborers, Chinese, you know.
We were having that conversation with the PPDA on Kickstarter, exactly.
Okay. So let us retain some of that money.
Okay.
Because construction, how much was it, Honorable? It's the highest. That money we should...
second highest. It's only just the second highest.
Right.
At least 50% of that money should be retained through jobs, through industries. I want to see which factory on Entebbe Road doing iron bars, producing iron, you know, employing young people, you know, cement industries, employing people, and then we pay back taxes and we pay back that money.
Okay, all right. Mr. Wilfred, your last remarks as we come to a close.
Yes, I definitely share his sentiments that whichever money we collect from our people in the form of taxes should primarily go to serve the very same people. So we should look at sectors that not only help people to lead a better life, but also to generate income for themselves.
Okay.
So look at areas like health, water, education, agriculture, electricity, yes, good roads and the like, that will in the end generate more employment and people lead better lives.
Okay.
But getting money and spending it on the public administration, you are creating districts from villages, not to create jobs even, not to produce, but basically because you want regime survival, you want patronage, political patronage, is where we are getting it from.
So we all
I just say just one announcement that we are going to have a tax debate, a tax talk today in the afternoon at 2 at Gulf View Hotel. Let us talk about tax. Who should pay? Who shouldn't pay? Where should our money go? It's our money.
So
and
we do agree. So we do
citizens.
agree that we need a total review of the national tax system. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and we do
actually
agree
need to involve more our people in agreeing with what form of taxes are we looking at.
And we do agree that these expatriates should not be given tax holidays. We do agree, yes or no?
Agree.
Yes or no?
To some extent.
It shouldn't be blunt.
With a limitation.
No. Let it be transparent. See that the way it should be done.
Get tax holidays, they get land, and all
so there has to be a limit.
And all are being done, they can understand it.
But there has to be a system. There has to be a system.
Who gets to benefit from the tax holidays and why? And who gets to benefit from land bonanza
and why? And for how long?
You also give it to the lack of investors.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your views. Rita, please close this for us.
In regards to the fact that domestic revenue continues to be something that they're going to charge you, yes, you as a citizen have to be a part of helping us in 2019-2020, the financial year. The government requires your help. Now, your involvement is definitely necessary. So do continue the conversation, Morning at NTV. That's the hashtag you can use. And as they have told you, the tax debate does go on this afternoon. Try to be there. Morning at NTV has come to an end. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I hope for the local entrepreneurs you've picked up something, and also for you as a local entrepreneur, or even just as a Ugandan citizen. There's a lot more that you do and take part within our country. Keep it NTV Uganda.
You're watching Morning at